Our daily Bible reading for May 14th. Our reading today comes from the Gospel of John, chapter 6. We'll be reading verses 1 through 24. After this, Jesus went away to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, which is the Sea of Tiberias, and a large crowd was following him because they saw the signs that he was doing on the sick. Jesus went up on the mountain, and there he sat down with his disciples. Now the Passover, the feast of the Jews, was at hand. Lifting up his eyes then, and seeing that a large crowd was coming toward him, Jesus said to Philip, "Where are we to buy bread so that these people may eat?" He said this to test him, for he himself knew what he would do. Philip answered him, 200 denarii worth of bread would not be enough for each of them to get a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, "There is a boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what are they for so many?" Jesus said, "Have the people sit down." Now there was much grass in the place. So the men sat down, about 5,000 in number. Jesus took the loaves. When he had given thanks, he distributed them to those who were seated. So also the fish, as much as they wanted. And when they had eaten their fill, he told his disciples, "Gather up the leftover fragments, that nothing may be lost." So they gathered them up and filled 12 baskets with fragments from the 5 barley loaves left by those who had eaten. When the people saw the sign that he had done, they said, "This is indeed the prophet who is to come into the world." Perceiving then that they were about to come and take him by force to make him king, Jesus withdrew again to the mountain by himself. When evening came, his disciples went down to the sea, got into a boat, and started across the Sea of Capernaum. It was now dark, and Jesus had not yet come to them. The sea became rough because a strong wind was blowing. When they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, they saw Jesus walking on the sea and coming near the boat. And they were frightened. And he said to them, "It is I, do not be afraid." Then they were glad to take him into the boat, and immediately the boat was at the land to which they were going. On the next day, the crowd that remained on the other side of the sea saw that there had been only one boat there, and that Jesus had not entered the boat with his disciples, but that his disciples had gone away alone. Other boats from Tiberias came near the place where they had eaten the bread after the Lord had given thanks. So when the crowd saw that Jesus was not there, nor his disciples, they themselves got into the boats and went to Capernaum, seeking Jesus. And now some thoughts for today. In an earlier devotional, we looked at the passage which told us in John chapter 2 and verse 24 and 25, but Jesus on his part was not entrusting himself to them, for he knew all men, and because he did not need anyone to testify concerning man, for he himself knew what was in man. It is intriguing to realize that Jesus knew the hearts of all men and the intents that lie within. In Psalm 33, verses 13 to 15, we find, "The Lord looks from heaven. He sees all the sons of men. From his dwelling place he looks out on all the inhabitants of the earth. He who fashions the hearts of them all, he understands all their works." What was it that the people desired of this man from Galilee? Was their desire to break the bonds of the oppressive Roman rulers? Was it to reestablish the Davidic throne so long abandoned from the exile to Babylon under Nebuchadnezzar? Was it the human need to have a king, much like the Israelites under Samuel? We find in 1 Samuel 8, verses 4 and 5, "Then all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah and said to him, 'Behold, you have grown old, and your sons do not walk in your ways. Now appoint a king for us to judge us like all the nations.'" Having just witnessed the miracle of feeding of the thousands on the hillside, the people were eager to make Jesus king by force if necessary. But Jesus would not have this, for this was not the plan of God. Jesus would make the statement on occasions that his time had not yet come. In John chapter 7, verse 6, it says, "Jesus therefore said to them, 'My time is not at hand, but your time is always opportune.'" All things would be done according to God's will and in his time. Jesus would not be lured into the superficial realm of earthly king. His task was to do the will of the Father, and to that end he would go about healing and proclaiming the gospel message of the redemptive work he must do. Our question of the day: What do you think the people hoped to accomplish by forcing Jesus, if needed, to be king? And a thought to meditate on this day. Jesus' response to the crowd's desire was to withdraw to a secluded place. We would do well to consider times of solitary that we may meditate on spiritual matters. Those are our thoughts for today, May 14th.